All right, let's get right into it. We've got a story that, on the surface, seems pretty simple. A contractor who doesn't get paid. But this thing spirals into a 3-year legal roller coaster, with verdicts flipping from not guilty to guilty and all the way back again. It's a wild ride that hinges on some really fascinating and kind of tricky points of law. So let me ask you this. Picture yourself as a contractor. You buy the materials, you put in all the hard work, everything's installed, and then nothing. The payment just doesn't show up. So what can you do? Are you allowed to go back to the job site and just take your stuff back? That's the exact question at the heart of this entire case.
So here's what went down. Back in October 2021, a subcontractor, Mr. Chen, is on a renovation project. He installs a bunch of pipes and wiring, but a dispute breaks out over the payment. Feeling like he's been cheated, he goes back to the site late at night and just takes it all out. To him, it was a form of protest. He probably thought no pay, no pipes. But as he found out, the law saw it as, well, something much more complicated.
Okay, so the case ends up in court. First stop, the district court. And their initial ruling seems pretty sensible, because it all came down to a very human idea: what a person believes. And boom, the district court finds Mr. Chen not guilty. The reason why is so interesting. The court didn't get bogged down in who technically owned the pipes at that exact moment. Nope, they looked inside Mr. Chen's head. They decided that because he genuinely, truly believed the materials were still his, since he wasn't paid for them, he didn't have the intent to steal. As far as he was concerned, he was just taking back his own stuff. But this was far from over. The prosecutor just wasn't buying that state of mind argument and decided to appeal. And this, my friends, is where our legal roller coaster takes its first major plunge. The case gets kicked up to the high court. They take a fresh look at all the evidence, all the laws, and in a pretty shocking move, they completely flip the verdict on its head. That simple, intuitive not guilty decision, yeah, that gets tossed right out. And we're not talking about a small fine here. The High Court hit Mr. Chen with a 6-month prison sentence for theft. So you have to be asking, what on earth changed? What legal argument could be so powerful that it turns this whole case around and puts a man behind bars? Well, the answer is a legal concept called accession. Think of it this way. It's like baking a cake. Once you mix your flour and eggs into the batter and bake it, you can't just reach in and pull your eggs back out, right? They've become part of the cake. The High Court said that's exactly what happened here. The moment Mr. Chen installed those pipes, they acceded to the house. They legally became part of the property and ownership transferred to the homeowner, even if he hadn't paid for them yet. So when Mr. Chen took them back, he was, in the eyes of the law, stealing someone else's property. So guilty then. Case closed? Not even close. Mr. Chen appeals again, this time to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. And what the Supreme Court does is brilliant. They don't give a verdict. Instead, they send the case back down with one critical question that completely changes the game. The Supreme Court basically said, hey, everyone's been focusing on the wrong thing here. They argued that accession and who technically owned the pipes wasn't the real issue. The heart of a theft charge, they explained, isn't the taking, it's the why. It all comes down to the defendant's specific motive. And that brings us to the legal bullseye, unlawful intent of appropriation. Now that's a mouthful, but it's a really specific idea. It means you're not just taking something, you're taking it because you plan to make it your own. You're going to use it or sell it or otherwise profit from it, treating it like you're the true owner. This makes it a lot clearer, right? On one side, you have classic theft, taking a bike you find on the street to sell it for cash. Your goal is to profit from the bike itself. But then you have Mr. Chen's case. Was his goal to sell those used pipes on the black market? Probably not. His goal was to put pressure on the homeowner to settle the payment dispute. The Supreme Court said that this motive, to get leverage in a civil fight, is totally different from the criminal intent to profit. So, with this new legal playbook from the Supreme Court, the case goes right back to the High Court for a do-over. They had to look at the exact same set of facts, but now through this completely new lens of intent. And you can see the entire journey laid out here. It's just wild. The verdict started at not guilty, based on the defendant's personal belief. Then it swung hard to guilty, based on the property law of accession. The Supreme Court then steps in, not with a verdict, but by shifting the whole focus to unlawful intent, the motive. And that leads us to the final stop, the High Court's retrial, which lands back at not guilty.
So, how did they finally land on not guilty? Well, it really boiled down to this four-step logic. 1. The court agreed Mr. Chen had a real civil claim for payment. 2. Because of that claim, his motive wasn't to enrich himself with the pipes, but to get his payment issue sorted out. 3. That means he lacked the very specific, unlawful intent needed for theft. 4. Therefore, his action wasn't a crime. It was a messy, not-so-great part of a civil contract dispute.
So what do we take away from all this? First, and this is huge, in criminal law, why you did something is often just as important as what you did. Second, a technicality like accession can change who owns something, but that alone doesn't make taking it back a crime. The real decider is that unlawful intent. And finally, it's a powerful reminder that the law isn't always black and white. The same facts can be interpreted in completely different ways, leading to drastically different results.
At the end of the day, this whole 3-year legal battle was about drawing a clear line in the sand between a civil dispute and an actual crime. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? How many disagreements in our own lives over money or work or promises are sitting right on that same blurry, fascinating, and incredibly important edge.